Hello, my good friends. Today I want us to look at Surds, and there is a topic that we have in Form 3, topic 4, whereby we shall start by looking at simplification of Surds. As you all know that a Surd is a root. It can be a square root, it can be a cube root of numbers that are irrational numbers. Numbers, when you look for their square roots, you can't express it as an exact power or maybe as a real fraction. So that is what we refer as a root. So we have a special way of simplifying such surds. That is what I want us to look at today. To start with, let us first look at an example. And in this case, we will work out a question whereby you are required to simplify. You simplify root 72. So if you are with your calculator around and then you try to place the root of 72, it will leave you a number that you can't write as a fraction, a number that is actually a continuous number, which is endless. So therefore we have ways of expressing this number and also simplify it down. So let us look at how to simplify a number like root 72. So for us to simplify this number, we look at the two numbers that you can multiply so that you get 72. So such numbers, for example, we have 72 times 1. We have numbers like 12 times 6. We have numbers like 36 times 2. We have numbers like 9 times 8. So all these numbers, when you multiply, you actually get 72. But for us to simplify a surd and to ensure that this number is a surd, we look at those numbers. The two numbers, when you multiply, you get that number that we are looking for. But in those two numbers, one must be a root. There must be having a root, like a square root, a cube root, and it is. But if you look at the equation that we are dealing with, is a square root. So therefore we ensure that we get a number in which one of those numbers must be a root. And in this case, we have to consider a number which is bigger than the other one. So we can't get a root of 72. We can't get a root of 12 for a square root of 12. For a square root of 6, we don't have it. But a square root of that 6, we can get a square root of that 6. We can as well as get a square root of 9. So between the two numbers, that is that 6 times 2 and 9 times 8, we pick that number with the bigger square root number. In this case, we will go with that 6, so that now root 72 is equivalent to, you take that 6, you multiply it by 2. So therefore, if you take that 6 and multiply it by 2, you will get that 2. So now if we try to separate the two numbers, because we have a sign of multiplication, this can be written as root 36 times root 2. Then from there, with the root 36, we can get the square root of that 6, and in our case, the square root of that 6 is equivalent to 6. But we don't have a square root of 2, so we just multiply by the square root of 2. Because when you look for the square root of 2, you get an irrational number, a decimal number that is actually continuous. It can even fill your calculator. So therefore, this is what we refer as an irrational number. And with multiplication, we know that when you multiply in two numbers, this odd number and a root number. So the answer will be equivalent to 6 root 2. So this is how we simplify numbers in surds, or if you are given a surd number and then you are required to just simplify. For example, this is a single surd number, that is 72. This is the step that we take. You look for those numbers that when you multiply the numbers, the two numbers, if you multiply them, you get 72. And in our case, we have actually found that the two numbers that we can multiply are numbers like 72 times 1, 12 times 6, that 6 times 2, 9 times 8. All these numbers gives you 72. But we are going to choose that number with the square root number in it, and also a number that is a square root but is a bigger number than the other numbers. So in this case, remember 9 you can as well as get the square root of 9, but we're not going to consider this because this is less than that 6. So therefore we are going to go with that 6 because that's what will give us a number. This is the easier way to work out this surds, and then you simplify a surd to get an answer. For example, in our case, our answer is equivalent to root 6 root 2.